I just want to proffer this question to you at the beginning, and I don't really want anybody to do it, but if I asked any of you to come to the front of the stage now, pick up this microphone, and tell everyone else about the last time you had a sexual experience, and talk to us about that, good, bad, or indifferent. My memory's not that good, I'm afraid, but you talk about your experience to an audience like this. Add to that the trauma and perhaps the violence surrounding that. Add to that your relative naivety in terms of age. Add to that your naivety in terms of life experience, and then sit before police officer and or CPFS staff, or both, 2 or more, sometimes 3. I'm not talking about Western Australia now, I'm talking about around the world. And then you begin to get a picture of how difficult that is. How difficult that is. And the biases that are built into the way we actually adjudicate on what constitutes success in child investigation actually mitigates against what the victim wants out of this, because that is rarely a consideration, rarely. Of course, we pretend that it is, because we put things in place and we have counsellors and all the rest of it, but the truth is that the incentive for the police to actually even record the offence as a criminal offence is not there, because their own performance indicators set by you as the society here, set by the government in fact, are not geared to any other outcome for the police other than a case disposal, which means largely they are either charged and then prosecuted, but once they are charged, the police have succeeded. And the DPP has succeeded if somebody's convicted. The commodity used to actually achieve that success is the victim. And too often, they are referred to as the case in the case of, the case file. The victim. These labels were put on what are people. They are people. We are all unique. We are all unique. There is no one-size-fits-all in terms of how you interview a victim of crime, from whatever crime type you're talking about, but more particularly what I call interpersonal crime. We're all different, and yet we try to superimpose a blanket way of what is the notion of success. If you don't get a grip of that in your head now, think about today. We'll all go away from here today, but a bit of backslapping will go on, and we'll say, oh, fantastic conference. Yeah, sold the tickets out the first week. Waiting list, you know. Yeah? Is that success? Is that success? What is the measure of success? Just think about that for a minute. I learned that one. Don't keep talking. Let it sink in. Let them think about it. Bit of paper, point again. So think about that. What is success? What is success for the victim? Do we, as the police in society, and I'm not talking about the police service, I'm talking about we, as the policing of criminality in our society, do we allow that? Do we allow any other eventuality other than a hang 'em and flog 'em approach? Ask yourself the question. Do we demonize everybody in that continuum? Again, it's a question, not a statement. Do we stigmatize the victim? There will be people in this room, health warning, who may have been or is being currently a victim of some form of abuse. There will. There will. How ready are we as victims to identify ourselves? How many of us would sit on the floor behind the lectern because we don't want people to know? Rhetorical question. How difficult is it then for the victim When we use survivor, victim, we try and soften it, but at the end of the day, they're a victim of criminality. How difficult it is for them to enter this absolutely adversarial world, which tears their world upside down, and we expect, against all the evidence, we expect them to disclose fully, in a coherent manner, in a chronological order, many of whom who live in an environment where time is immaterial, where the levels of education sometimes are not what we would like them to be, and we wheel them in as a victim and as a commodity to actually achieve our notion of success. It does not work. It never has, and it never will, in my view, because you may have a different view. But we perpetuate it. And what we're seeing now around the world, and I'm talking about a lot of experience in the UK, India, I go to India quite a bit, because I've got an interest over there in terms of a charity, and Western Australia. And the same applies whether you're in the UK, whether you're in Western Australia, or whether you're in India. Even worse in parts of India that I go to, because there's no chance for most victims, not even a process of referral, never mind counselling for offenders or people who are victims of their own offending. So we are supposed to be an educated society, but what we are seeing is an avalanche of referrals from years and years ago. Yeah, years and years ago. And the criminal justice system is almost breaking at the seams to deal with it. The Western world, particularly in America, particularly in the UK, and across Europe, is trying not to incarcerate people. Why? Because it's too expensive. And most things in life come down to the dollar, don't they? They don't come down to principle. They don't come down to what we should do. They come to how much it will cost. How much can we save? I'll go back to what I said before. These are people. These are people. We, you, us, have to make choices about what is important. Why don't we? Well, let's go back to where I come from. I'm a UK kid. I'm not UK at all. I'm English and proud. Can't say English in England anymore, but I'm English and proud. But what I do like about you is you're so vulgar, aren't you? Yeah? So you can get away with words here. Someone said black sheep this morning. You'd be dragged out as a heretic if you said that in England. It's just crazy. But you can say lots of things here you can't say in England. So it is different in terms of culture. But the traditional culture is this, that if anybody commits such a crime, everybody goes shock horror, castrate them, put them away, hang them and flog them, that's sorted that problem. Not true. Doesn't sort much of anything, frankly, only stops them offending, perhaps, for a short period while they're out of reach of the potential client base. But it's all borne about by our biases. I was brought up in a family of 8 kids. My dad worked in the steelworks. There's a high predominance of coal mines in my area, and we all shared beds. And outside of my family, thank goodness, I witnessed incest. It was the tradition in some mining communities for the father to break in the daughter before they got married, to save that happening to her from the new husband. Whether we like it or not, that was the norm. That was the norm, and acceptable. So when, I think it was Christabel said, how do I know whether I've been a victim? Sometimes they don't know because that is normal in their society. In India, where I go, 10 people will sleep on the same bed. Things happen. Things happen. And they accept that as the norm. But my road to Damascus, for those who are religious, and I'm not really, but I was in the Salvation Army. I've got any Salvation Army in? When I was a child, yeah? And I remember a lot of the Bible. And my road to Damascus moment was this, and it's a harrowing story, but I'm going to tell you very briefly, because I ain't got long. A lad was nicked in England, and he came in, and the detective was talking to him, and he going through his, where do you live? Oh, so-and-so. With your mum and dad? No. He's only 16. He said, you don't live with your parents? I said, no. Why not? Well, my dad's a bit strange. How is he strange? Well, what he does is he stupefies my mother, dresses up in sexy lingerie in the bedroom, and then he makes me have sex with her while he films it. So the detective said, oh, I need some help here. I'm not equipped to deal with this. Shock horror. So they go away, and they get the specialists in, so-called. And they interview this lad, and he goes on to disclose that his dad advertises for glamour girls in the paper. He's built a hide in his bedroom, a separate room, and he takes pictures of them while they're undressing and when they're clothed. He also has the boy who delivers the boys who deliver the newspapers to have sex with his wife while she's unconscious, while he films it. And any number of other children, because his thing was, or one of them, was to get off on seeing his wife being effectively raped by boys of a certain age, young boys. And if that wasn't bad enough, they had 6 foster girls over a period of time as we investigated this. So I was in charge of child abuse school at the time, and the guy said to me, what are we doing? So we're getting up to the house, we're going to bust him, and we're going to try and corroborate what this lad has said. And we found the hide, and we found all the stupefying, noxious substances that he'd used to knock her out with. Everything fitted. It was bang on. Now, his thing was, another thing, again, we're all different. He used to take the foster girls over a number of years to the 18th green at the local golf club and urinate inside them. Okay? That was his thing. So, anyway, he gets nicked, and he's on the chair, the light and all that. But we don't need all that, because he's absolutely matter-of-fact about the whole thing. And we go through it, my lads do, he goes through it, and he admits everything, and more, all involving children of a certain age. And then he has to see me. He has to see me. He's been interviewed for some hours, he's been in custody a couple of days. And he said, I was inspector then, he said, oh, Inspector, I think I'd like to go home now. I think you'll find I've cooperated very well with you, and I'd like a cup of tea in the sanctuary of my own home. Well, of course, I'm a hang 'em and flog 'em man at the time. So I'm quite indignant about this. I said, home? Home? I said, we can't have this sort of abnormal behaviour. I said. That's the first time he reared up, got out of his chair. He was indignant, he was angry, he was annoyed. Excuse me, Inspector, what I do is normal to me, he said. Well, I'm usually quite shy, retiring type. And I was gobsmacked. He said, it's normal to me. And the light came on a bit for me then. Hang on a minute, we're approaching this all wrong. We don't know how to interview people. We don't know about the psychology of talking to people who do things that are alien to us. We judge and condemn, and we use the success criteria to make the interview fit what constitutes success. And we should be better than that. We should be better than that. Ask a question. Should there be around the world police officers who are specially trained with specialist skills to know how to, A, interview potential victims, but also how to interview offenders? Rhetorical question. Or do we assume, in some jurisdictions, you can be on the robbery squad on the Friday and on the child abuse squad on the Monday, and you're interviewing a robbery victim and witnesses and all around that, and next, oh, by the way, interview the child or interview the offender. It's a total different world. A totally different world. And there's been so much work done in research terms on victimology, very little on, or hardly anything until Christabel manifested herself on the scene, about the offender as a victim of their own offending, and how we can then build that knowledge and learning in to actually reduce the incidence of child abuse. In fact, it doesn't exist. You search for it. There's hardly anything there. The ignorance around what constitutes a paedophile and what constitutes a sex offender is manifest. You've only got to open the West today. I've not seen it because I don't really read it, but if you do, if there's a sex case, all sex offenders are paedophiles, aren't they? With children? No, well, that's what it says. And they're not, we know that, but that's what society believes. And so the performance indicators around what constitutes success is built on a falsehood. It's built on a myth. It's built on a myth. We've got to be more sophisticated in what we do. We've got to give the police, that's you, and the police force, and the police service, and the CPFS, an alternative way. There is another way. But we are conditioned by all our biases that we grow up with. We are conditioned by all that to actually follow what we've always done. Is that right? We are. And all our opinions largely are based on our personal, sometimes professional bias. That's exacerbated by my favourite word in the world, ego. Now, to do this, you've got to have a bit of ego, yeah? You've got a bit of ego. I have got an ego, I don't deny that. But when that actually flies in the face of logic for self-interest, the actually interdepartmental within an agency, intradepartmental, and extra-departmental with different government agencies, all competing to hit their success factors, set by the government, set by you, because you vote for them, then we've got a problem. And who suffers at the end of it? The victim. We've got to be more mature. We've got to be more mature about what constitutes success and say, look, let's have some performance factors across the board which we all contribute to. Now, you might say, well, we need to do a bit more on that, we need to do a bit more on that. But in general, it's going the right way, and this is the score out of whatever it is. And get people working together as a team, because, as Christabel said, we all want to protect the child, don't we? But we let egos get in the way. We don't share information about the same person because we don't want them to know, because of our biases, a professional bias. I had a bad experience with CPFS, somebody will say, so therefore I don't talk to them. I had a bad experience with the police. All the police are useless. We hear this rhetoric all the time because we're not mature enough to actually keep focus on what the objective is, to reduce the offending against the child. And we put ourselves first. So in essence, ladies and gents, in essence, you are the problem, but also the solution, aren't you? You are the problem. Now, when I got up here, you'd have read on the thing, Dave G, blah, 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 Superman, wears his underpants outside, copper, England, talks in a strange accent. He is different from us. I will subconsciously label him. I will label him. I know what I'm going to expect because he's a bluff northern Englishman. Not even an Englishman. Not a real one. He's not from London. So, do you live in London? No, I don't. It's like when you come here. Sorry? 2 minutes, so let's have another hour. No, 2 minutes. When I come to Australia, where do you go to? Sydney? No, Perth. Perth. Only you. However, our biases dictate everything that we do. Not some of the time, not a bit of the time, all of the time. It's A, recognizing that in yourself, in ourselves, and coming to some common mature, that's the word I use, mature outcome, rather than what your bias is telling you. If and only then, if we do that, and only if we do that, will the way we treat victims of crime in general and child victims of crime in particular, that this is not just another, this is not a, what can we say? If anybody from Peppermint Grove? Rich enough? I guarantee you this. If someone was attacked, perish the thought, in Peppermint Grove now, this morning, female, and the same incident took place in Balga, or another one of those, because we're socially biased, yeah? Oh, Balga, they're all villains. No, they're not. Most great people. The response from society, you, to the Balga incident would be lessened, or less than, the one where it's in Peppermint Grove. Fact. I'm accusing you now, so you can have a go at me after lunch. But fact, most of us are not mature enough. We don't even know that we do it. So when we're dealing with child victims of crime, we've got to abandon all that, what kind of community they come from, what kind of family they come from, how we can help each other to actually help the child for the offending to stop, get them out of that, and be more mature about it. And I'll leave you with this. This is the start. This is an opportunity. New government, new opportunity. There will be politicians. Any in the room? Anybody brave to put their hand up? There will be politicians who want to make a name for themselves. They'll want to hang the hat on something new. Ego again. I don't care what the motivation is. Let's seize that opportunity, because we cannot, we must not continue to fail our children. Thank you.